Some places stay open all night, but some nights should never be open at all. The gas station stood alone on Highway 47. Miles of empty road stretched in both directions. No houses, no lights, just trees, fields, and the cold wind brushing past the broken sign that flickered above the building. Open 24 hours. The last word blinked on and off like it was struggling to stay alive. That was where Maya Collins had just gotten a job. She stepped out of the rusty sedan that dropped her off and stared at the place. The smell of gasoline hung in the air. Somewhere in the distance, a dog howled. The man who drove her here, Mr. Patel, the owner, locked the door behind him. "Night shift is easy," he said. "Few customers. Mostly truck drivers." Maya nodded slowly. She tried not to think about the hospital. 3 months ago she had been locked inside white walls and steel doors. Doctors asking questions. Nurses watching her every move. All because of Ethan Cole. Her ex-boyfriend. The man who turned out to be a serial killer. And the man she tried to burn alive. They said she had a breakdown. They said she imagined things. But Maya knew what she saw. The screams. The blood. The bodies. And Ethan smiling. Inside the gas station, the lights buzzed loudly. Shelves of chips and candy lined the walls. A dusty coffee machine gurgled behind the counter. A security monitor showed 4 black and white camera feeds of the empty parking lot. Mr. Patel handed her a key. "Midnight to 6 a.m., he said. "Lock the door after 1 a.m. Use the window for customers." Maya looked around. "Do people come this late?" "Sometimes." He paused before leaving. "If anyone strange comes, call the police." Then he drove away. His headlights disappeared down the road. And Maya was alone. The clock ticked loudly. 12:17 a.m. Maya tried to focus on simple things. Counting money. Cleaning the counter. Stacking cigarettes. But the silence made her skin crawl. Every little sound felt too loud. The humming lights. The wind pushing against the glass. The creaking roof. She looked up at the security monitors. Nothing. Just empty asphalt. Her doctor's voice echoed in her mind. "Your mind may create things that aren't real." Maya rubbed her temples. "I'm fine," she whispered. Then the doorbell rang. Ding. She jumped. A tall truck driver walked in. Big beard. Heavy boots. "Coffee," he grunted. Maya poured him a cup. Her hands shook slightly. The man noticed. "First night?" he asked. She nodded. He chuckled. "Yeah, this place gets weird at night." Maya froze. "What do you mean?" The truck driver shrugged. "Just a feeling." He paid and left. His truck roared away into the darkness. And the silence came back. 1:03 a.m. Time to lock the door. Maya turned the key and pulled down the metal shutter halfway. Customers would have to use the small night window. She sat behind the counter, watching the security screens. Minutes passed. Then something moved on camera 3. A shape near the gas pumps. Maya leaned closer. A man stood there, perfectly still, watching the building. Her stomach tightened. He didn't move. Didn't pump gas. Didn't walk. Just stared. Then slowly, he lifted his hand. And waved. Maya's heart slammed against her chest. Because she recognized him. The tall figure. The long coat. The same crooked posture. It looked exactly like Ethan. Her serial killer ex-boyfriend. The man who was supposed to be dead. Her breathing grew heavy. "That's not possible." She stared at the screen again. The gas pumps were empty. No one there. The camera showed nothing but wind moving a plastic bag across the ground. Maya leaned back. Her doctor's words echoed again. Hallucinations. She rubbed her face. "I'm just tired." But then the doorbell rang again. Ding. Maya turned slowly. The door was still locked. But someone was knocking on the glass. Slow. Soft. Tap, tap, tap. And a familiar voice whispered through the door. "Maya." Her blood turned cold. because she knew that voice. It was Ethan, and he was supposed to be dead. The knocking continued. Tap, tap, tap. Maya felt her body freeze behind the counter. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the desk, as if it was the only thing keeping her standing. Maya, the voice whispered again. Her heart started pounding harder. No, she muttered under her breath. This isn't real. She slowly turned toward the security monitors. Camera 3. The gas pumps were empty. No one standing there. No man in a coat. Nothing. But the knocking on the door continued. Tap, tap, tap. Maya slowly walked toward the door. Every step felt heavy, like her legs were made of stone. "Who's there?" she asked through the glass. Silence. The knocking stopped. For a few seconds, there was only the sound of the wind pushing dust across the parking lot. Maya leaned closer to the door. The dark parking lot stretched in front of her, lit only by the pale yellow lights above the pumps. No one was there. She stepped back slowly. "See," she whispered to herself. "Just your mind." The doctors had warned her. They said trauma can play tricks on the brain, especially when someone spends months locked inside a mental hospital. She forced herself to breathe slowly. Then suddenly, a loud bang hit the back wall of the building. Maya jumped. The sound came from the storage room behind the counter. Her throat went dry. No one should be there. Mr. Patel had locked everything before leaving. The store suddenly felt much smaller, much darker. Another sound came. Frape. Like something dragging across the floor. Maya grabbed the small baseball bat under the counter. Mr. Patel had shown it to her earlier. "Just in case," he had said. Her hands trembled as she walked toward the storage room door. The hallway light flickered. Once. Twice. Then it steadied again. She placed her hand on the door handle. Her mind screamed at her not to open it. But she slowly turned the handle anyway. The door creaked open. The storage room was empty. Boxes of chips. Stacks of soda crates. Cleaning supplies. Nothing else. Maya exhaled in relief. Then she heard something behind her. Footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Walking inside the store. Maya spun around. A man stood at the counter. Tall. Dirty jacket. His face hidden in shadow. The door behind him was still locked. The metal shutter was still down. No way he could have entered. Her voice shook. "How did you get in?" The man didn't answer. He slowly lifted his head. The light from the ceiling finally touched his face. Maya's stomach twisted. His skin was pale. Too pale. And there were deep scars across his cheek. But the worst part, he was smiling. A long, slow smile. "Maya," he said softly. Her entire body went cold. Because the man looked exactly like Ethan Cole, the serial killer she tried to kill. The man who burned in a house fire 6 months ago. "No," she whispered. Her grip tightened around the baseball bat. "You're dead." Ethan tilted his head slightly. "That's what they told you." His voice sounded calm. Too calm. Maya's memories started rushing back. The burning house. The gasoline. The flames climbing the walls. Ethan screaming as the fire swallowed the room. The police pulling Maya away as the building collapsed. They told her Ethan's body was never found. But the doctors said that didn't mean anything. They said her brain was filling in the gaps, creating monsters from trauma. "Maya," Ethan said again. He stepped forward. Maya raised the bat. "Stay back." But Ethan didn't stop. Another step. Then another. His smile widened. "You tried to kill me," he said quietly. Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. "You killed people," she whispered. His eyes darkened. "And you watched." Her breath caught in her throat. Because that part was true. She had seen everything. The victims. The blood. The terrible things Ethan did. And she stayed silent. Until one night she finally snapped. "You made me do it," Maya said weakly. Ethan laughed softly. "No, Maya. You always liked the darkness." Suddenly, the lights inside the gas station flickered violently. The security monitors sparked. The humming electricity buzzed loudly in the ceiling. Maya blinked. And Ethan was gone. The store was empty again. No footsteps. No man. Nothing. The baseball bat slipped from her hands and hit the floor. Her chest rose and fell quickly. "This isn't real," she whispered. But then the phone rang. The loud sound echoed through the store. Maya slowly walked back to the counter. Her hands shook as she picked up the receiver. "Hello." For a few seconds there was only static. Then a familiar voice whispered through the phone. "Maya, look outside." Her blood froze. Because it was Ethan's voice again. She slowly lifted her head and looked through the glass window. A pair of headlights had just pulled into the parking lot. A police car. Relief flooded through her chest. Maybe someone called them. Maybe everything would finally make sense. The officer stepped out of the car. He walked toward the door calmly. But as he stepped into the light, Maya noticed something strange. The police officer's uniform was covered in blood. And he was dragging something behind him. Something heavy. Something shaped like a body. The police car's headlights cut through the empty parking lot like two sharp knives. Maya stood frozen behind the counter. Her heart was beating so loudly she could hear it in her ears. The police officer stepped out slowly. At first everything seemed normal. Blue uniform. Police badge. Black boots. But when he moved closer to the lights above the pumps, Maya saw something that made her stomach twist. His uniform was soaked in blood. Dark red stains covered his chest and sleeves. And behind him, something heavy dragged across the asphalt. A body. The sound was horrible. Scrape, scrape. Maya felt her throat go dry. The officer finally stopped in front of the door. He looked up at her through the glass. His face was pale and tired. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "open the door." Maya didn't move. Her eyes shifted toward the thing he was dragging. A person. Wrapped in a dirty blanket. One hand stuck out from the cloth. The fingers were stiff. "Dead." "What happened?" Maya asked through the glass. The officer wiped blood from his forehead. "Car accident down the road," he said. "Need to use your phone." Something about his voice felt strange. Too flat. Too quiet. Maya looked toward the phone on the counter. Then back at the officer. "And the blood?" she asked. He stared at her for a long moment. Then he slowly smiled. "Not mine." A cold shiver crawled down Maya's spine. Her instincts screamed at her not to open that door. But he was a police officer. And someone outside might need help. Her hand slowly reached for the door lock. The metal clicked. She pulled the door open. The officer stepped inside. The smell hit her instantly. Iron. Rot. Blood. It filled the entire store. The officer dragged the body inside and dropped it near the counter. The blanket slipped slightly. Maya looked down. And immediately stepped back. The face staring up from the floor was burned badly. Skin blackened. Hair gone. But she still recognized him. Her heart stopped. It was Ethan Cole. Her ex-boyfriend. The serial killer. The man who was supposed to be dead. Maya's knees nearly gave out. That's not possible." The officer watched her carefully. "You know him?" he asked. Maya couldn't speak. Her brain felt like it was spinning. I burned him," she whispered. The officer tilted his head. "You tried." Maya looked up slowly. "What do you mean?" The officer knelt beside the body and pulled the blanket away completely. Ethan's body looked horrible. Burn marks everywhere. But something was wrong. His chest was moving. Slow, shallow breaths. Maya gasped. "He's alive." The officer stood up again. His face was suddenly very serious. "Barely." Maya stared in disbelief. "But the fire." "He crawled out before the house collapsed," the officer said. Her mind began replaying everything. The flames. The screaming. The collapsing roof. The police dragging her away. They told her Ethan died. They told her his body was lost in the fire. They told her to forget about him. But he hadn't died. He survived. And now he was here. The officer suddenly looked around the store. Did anyone else come tonight? Maya shook her head. Just one truck driver. The officer nodded slowly. Good. Then something strange happened. The lights above them flickered again. The security monitors buzzed loudly. Maya turned toward the screens. And her stomach dropped. Every camera showed someone standing outside. Not one person. Not two. 6 figures. Standing around the gas station. Watching. Their faces were impossible to see in the darkness. But their shapes looked wrong. Some were too tall. Some were bent strangely. One looked like it was missing an arm. Maya stepped closer to the monitor. Who are they? The officer looked at the screens. His expression suddenly changed. Fear. Real fear. That's not good, he whispered. Maya turned to him. What are they? Before he could answer, the body on the floor suddenly gasped. Maya spun around. Ethan's burned eyes slowly opened, and he looked straight at her. His cracked lips moved. A weak whisper escaped his throat. Maya. Her entire body went cold, because behind his voice, she heard something else. Dozens of voices whispering together. From outside the gas station. All saying the same word. Maya. 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 The figures outside began slowly walking toward the building. And the open 24-hour sign above the door started flickering violently. The whispers outside grew louder. Maya. 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 It sounded like many voices speaking at the same time. Some deep. Some thin. Some almost like children. Maya slowly stepped back from the door. Her heart was racing. The figures outside were now closer to the building. The gas station lights finally revealed their shapes. And what she saw made her blood run cold. They were not normal people. One man's neck was twisted sideways like it had been broken. Another figure limped forward with a leg that bent the wrong way. One woman's face was covered in dark blood that had dried across her mouth. They looked like people who had died in horrible accidents. The police officer stared at the monitors with wide eyes. Lock the back door, he said quickly. Maya ran toward the hallway and slammed the storage room door shut, locking it tightly. When she came back, the officer had pulled his gun out. His hands were shaking. What are they? Maya asked. The officer hesitated. Then he said quietly, victims. Maya frowned. Victims of what? The officer slowly looked down at the body on the floor. At Ethan. Victims of him. Maya felt her chest tighten. Outside, the figures kept walking closer. One of them stepped under the bright light near pump number 3. Maya recognized the face. A young woman. Her throat was cut deeply from ear to ear. The officer saw Maya staring. You recognize her? He asked. Maya nodded slowly. Yes. The memory returned suddenly. She had seen that girl before. Not in real life, but in Ethan's basement. The photos. The terrible photos Ethan used to keep. Pictures of victims. People he had murdered. And the woman outside was one of them. Maya stepped away from the monitor. They're all his victims, she whispered. The officer nodded grimly. That's what I think. The whispers outside became louder again. Now the figures were standing around the building, watching every window, watching every door. Then suddenly, bang! Something slammed hard against the glass door. Maya screamed. One of the figures had thrown itself against the entrance. Its face pressed against the glass. It was a man with a crushed skull. One eye missing. Blood dripping from his mouth. He slowly lifted his hand and began scratching at the glass. Screech. More figures moved closer. Soon 5 of them were pressing against the windows, their dead eyes staring inside. Maya turned toward the officer. What do they want? Before he could answer, the body on the floor started moving again. Ethan coughed violently. His burned body twitched as he tried to sit up. The officer pointed the gun at him. Don't move. Ethan laughed weakly. Even burned and broken, his voice sounded cold. You think they want me? The officer's finger tightened on the trigger. Shut up. Ethan slowly turned his head toward Maya. His eyes were dark. Empty. You told them about me, didn't you? He whispered. Maya shook her head quickly. I never told anyone. Ethan smiled. You didn't have to. He slowly pointed toward the windows. They remember. Outside, the figures began hitting the glass harder. Bang, bang, bang. The windows shook. The officer grabbed Maya's arm. If they get inside, we're dead. Maya looked at him in panic. What do we do? The officer swallowed nervously. We give them what they want. Maya looked down at Ethan. You mean him? The officer nodded. He brought them here. Ethan laughed again. A horrible sound. You think killing me will stop them? He slowly pointed toward Maya. No. They came for her. Maya felt her stomach drop. What? The officer frowned. What are you talking about? Ethan's cracked lips stretched into a smile. Because she watched. His eyes locked onto Maya. She saw everything I did. The whispers outside suddenly changed. The voices were no longer calling Ethan. Now they were calling something else. Maya. 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 The officer turned slowly toward her. What does he mean? Maya felt tears forming in her eyes. I didn't help him, she said weakly. Ethan chuckled. But you didn't stop me either. Outside, the windows started cracking. Thin lines spreading across the glass. Crack, crack. The dead faces pressed harder against the windows. Their mouths opened wide as they screamed silently. The officer looked at Maya. You need to tell me the truth. Her voice shook. I stayed with him for months, even after I knew what he was. The officer's face went pale. Outside, one of the windows shattered slightly. Glass pieces fell onto the floor. A dead hand slowly pushed through the crack. Reaching inside, trying to grab something. Maya backed away in terror. And Ethan whispered from the floor. They're not here for revenge. His smile grew wider. They're here to take you with them. The crack in the window grew wider. Crack, crack. Glass fell onto the floor in sharp pieces. The dead hand that pushed through the window began reaching farther inside the gas station. Its fingers were broken and gray, moving slowly like a spider crawling across the counter. Maya backed away until her shoulders hit the wall. Outside, the other figures started hitting the glass harder. Bang, bang. Darkness swallowed the gas station. The humming lights were gone. The buzzing refrigerators were silent. Only the wind outside and the faint sound of whispering filled the air. Maya couldn't see anything, but she could feel them. Cold hands touching her arms, her shoulders, her face. Burned fingers gripping her clothes. Maya, the voices whispered. Her breathing became fast and desperate. Please stop. A weak light suddenly flickered in the room. The police officer had turned on a small flashlight. The thin beam cut through the darkness. And what it revealed made Maya scream. The store was full. Not 5 figures. Not 10. Dozens. Dead men. Dead women. Burned bodies. Broken necks. Bleeding faces. They filled every corner of the gas station. Standing silently. Watching her. The officer slowly stepped backward. I can't stop them, he whispered. Maya turned toward him. Help me. But the officer looked confused. Almost frightened. Something is wrong here, he said quietly. Ethan's weak laughter came from the floor. You finally see it. The officer turned the flashlight toward him. What do you mean? Ethan's burned face looked strangely calm now. You think this is about revenge? The officer frowned. Isn't it? Ethan slowly shook his head. No. He lifted a shaking hand and pointed toward the door. Toward the flickering open 24-hour sign outside. This place. It's not normal. Maya stared at him. What are you talking about? Ethan looked directly into her eyes. This gas station sits on the exact spot where the house burned down. Maya felt her stomach drop. That's impossible. But then she started remembering. After the fire, the entire property was destroyed. Months later, a gas station was built on the empty land. This gas station. The one she was working in now. Ethan whispered slowly. The fire never ended. The dead figures began moving closer. Their footsteps were slow and uneven. The officer pointed the flashlight at the closest burned victim. What do they want? Ethan answered quietly. They want the truth. One of the burned women stepped forward. Her skin was black with ash. Her eyes hollow and glowing faintly in the darkness. She pointed at Maya. You locked the door. Another voice came from behind. We begged for help. A third voice joined. But you left us. Maya fell to her knees. Tears streamed down her face. I was scared. The voices echoed through the store. So were we. The officer slowly lowered the flashlight. His face had gone pale. You never told the police about the other victims, he said. Maya shook her head. They would have blamed me. Ethan's voice came again. They still do. The dead figures surrounded her completely now. Their burned hands reaching out. Cold. Shaking. Waiting. The officer suddenly looked confused again. He stared at his own hands. Something strange was happening. His skin looked pale. Almost gray. What is happening to me? He whispered. Maya looked up. The flashlight slipped from his fingers. And for the first time, she noticed the deep wound in his chest. A bullet hole. Right through his uniform. Her eyes widened. You're bleeding. The officer looked down slowly. The truth finally hit him. I died on the highway tonight. His voice was barely a whisper. The accident. The body he dragged earlier. It wasn't Ethan. It was his own body. Ethan smiled weakly. Now you understand. The officer was never alive. He had been dead the entire time. Just another soul trapped in this place. Just like the others. Just like the victims. Maya felt the cold hands tighten around her arms. The burned woman leaned closer. This place stays open. Another voice finished the sentence. Until the truth is paid. The open sign outside flickered violently again. Ethan looked at Maya one last time. You should have run further, he whispered. The dead victims began pulling her toward the door. Toward the darkness outside. She screamed and struggled. But there were too many hands. Too many voices. The officer watched silently as they dragged her away. The door slowly opened. Cold night air rushed inside. And the dead took Maya into the darkness. Her screams faded into the empty highway. Then everything went quiet again. Hours later, morning sunlight rose over Highway 47. A truck driver pulled into the gas station for coffee. He stepped inside. The store looked normal. Clean. Quiet. Empty. Except for one thing. Behind the counter stood a young woman in a gas station uniform. Her face pale. Her eyes hollow. She looked at the driver slowly. And forced a weak smile. Welcome, she said softly. Behind her, the open 24 hours sign buzzed and flickered again. The driver nodded. Rough night. Maya's hollow eyes stared into the darkness behind him. At the figures standing outside the windows. Waiting. Always waiting. She whispered quietly. They never close. The end.